உள்ளதல உள்ள உணர் உள்ளதோ உள்ள பொருள் உள்ளலர உள்ளத்தே உள்ளதா உள்ளம் எனும் உள்ள பொருள் உள்ளல் எவன் உள்ளத்தே உள்ளபடி உள்ளதே உள்ளல் உணர்வாயே. Namo Ramana. With Bhagavan's immense grace, we have come to the problem definition segment of this Ramanocentre. We have started with verse number 23, which is the first verse of problem definition. 24, 25, 26 continue along the line, and the root of all problems is defined for us by Bhagavan. It is well known that in management they say that problem definition is the most important point of problem solving. Unless you define the problem properly, the solution may be lost sight of, or at least meandered about in the search of solution. This particular area, problem definition, is given a lot of attention today, that even Albert Einstein is known to have said that if I am given 1 hour to save the world from something, then I will spend 59 minutes on defining the problem, defining the difficulty that Earth is facing. Then use the rest 1 minute to solve the problem. To that extent, the definition of problem clears the route, and the possibility of escaping into other routes is so huge. Now, Bhagavan in these 4 verses brings us to such a definition of the problem that it makes the whole situation handleable or within our reach. The ball is firmly in our court, but we have been given the right material and the right technique and the right ability to return the ball or to face the ball. This verse, 24th verse, is at the very heart of problem definition. 23rd verse we had seen, Nanendrik deham naviladu, உறக்கத்து நான் என்று ஆரும் நவில்வதில்லை, நானொன்றெழுந்த பின் எல்லாம் எழுது, இந்த நானெங்கெழும் என்று நுண்மதியால் எழு. Now, Nanendrik deham naviladu was defined in that verse itself, and we are going to use that in this verse. Nanendrik deham naviladu, the inert, the body does not rise as I. உறக்கத்து நான் என்றென்றாரும் நவில்வதில்லை. The deep sleep aspect was covered very well there in that verse, that in deep sleep, even when the body and mind are not present, one does not doubt one's own existence. And the search for the sukshma Atma has to be by Nunmadi, has to be not by instruments like senses, like breath, or like thoughts, but a ray of light that is even more abstract, more subtle than even the abstractest of thought forms. It is almost equal, almost the same as the Sat. Then we find that it is the same as the Sat. All elements of the body is removed. That is how the search is completed. But let's come to this critical verse, the key verse of problem definition. Because we look at life in terms of problems and solution to problems, the nail is hit squarely on the head by Bhagavan when he says in this verse, Jadavudal nanennadu, Satchittu udiyadu, Udalalawa nanundru udikkum idayilidu, Chit jadagirandi, Bandam, Jeevan, Nutpamai, Ahandai, Ichamusaram, Manam, Yen. The entire set of problems that one could face is summed up in one place called Chit Jada Giranti. Jadavudal nanennadu Satchit udiyadu Udalalawa nanundru dikkum idayilidu Chit jadagiranti bandam jeevanuppameyahandai ichamu saramanam yennenne. Before we go into the meaning of the verse, we should understand what Bhagavan means by Nanendriddeham Naviladu, when he says like that in the 23rd verse. And Jadavudal Nan Ennadu, what is this Nan Bhagavan is referring to? We should clearly understand that it is consciousness. The problem relates to consciousness in some way, apparently limiting itself, but we should clearly understand that Bhagavan is now taking up the enquiry into the Ullapurul from the standpoint of consciousness. The word consciousness was completely left by scientists for many years, and then they have slowly tried to come near that, and now quite a lot of research is going on, quite a lot of search is also going on in the area of consciousness. Lot of cusp areas between meditation fields and science are cropping up. Psychology, neurology, all these are combining to come up with the spiritual findings that Bhagavan has so clearly enunciated in this verse. We find many findings coming up in this area, but it is a multi-area study or multiple subjects study to come to consciousness, because consciousness of science, consciousness of biology, consciousness of ecosystems, consciousness of global warming. So from all those fields, people are converging to find that consciousness has a lot of riddles and solving which they could get answers to their problems also. But Bhagavan nails it straight on the head by saying, so what we have to be clear, it's a problem of consciousness that Bhagavan is unraveling here, and it is still being inquired into by science with some kind of hesitation, because it is a subjective area and they find it difficult, where things cannot be enumerated as findings or cannot be backed up with objective findings. But now, a lot of other things are coming up to substantiate the subjective area of consciousness also. But let's get into the verse. Jadavudal nan ennadu. The inert body does not rise as I, does not rise as I, or does not claim itself to be I. In some of the talks, when someone would say that it is so clear to them that they are the body, Bhagavan would put this question: is the body coming and telling you I, or are you claiming the body to be I? Then most of them, as I remember, would come around and say, no, it is I who am saying, or who is saying that this is my nose, my ears, my eyes, through which I sense the world. I am conscious of the world through these instruments. So that is how Bhagavan would bring them to the awareness that Jada Udal Nan Ennadu. There is no essential consciousness by itself for the body. It derives consciousness from the mind, says Sivaprakasham Pillai. But even that step is not taken by Kanakamal when she writes her commentary much later. For obvious reasons, she goes for the direct source from where consciousness comes. So she doesn't even say that the body has a consciousness because mind is there. Because mind itself is a subtle body. So she takes care of that by not mentioning that the mind is the source of the body. But for our clarification, we can understand Sivaprakasham Pillai's help that without the mind inside, the body cannot say I, even when in the waking state. So that is Jadavudal Nan Ennadu Satchit Udiyadu. Sat is real, Chit is consciousness, Irundu Olir, says Bhagavan in Ashtakam. As we all have recalled many times, the Ashtakam verse of who is Arunachala. Irundulir Unaividithu Aduthidal Devam. That is what is called as Sat Chit. Sat Chit Udiyadu. Arunachala does not rise as I. This was reminded to us in verse number 14 as to the nature of Sat Chit. Sorry, verse number 13 as to the nature of Sat Chit, where Bhagavan says, Jnanama Tane Mai Nanavam Jnanam Ajnanama Poyyam Ajnanamame Jnanamam Tannayandri Indru. Like that, then the Upamana of gold and ornaments are gone into in that verse. But the key point there is Jnanamam Tane Mei. Mei Jnanam. Jnanamam Tane Mei. That consciousness which does not rise or set, but merely has existence as I am, that is the Mei Purul. That is the Ulla Purul. Satchit Udiyadu. There is no modification or variation in the Sat Chit. So these two are now mentioned. Jadavudal Nan Ennadu Satchit Udiyadu. We can recall the scientist boy who had come to Bhagavan briefly, where Bhagavan had said that the instrument you are using to perceive the world is the I am the body thought. He has some discussions by which he reduces those instruments to this, that what is the root instrument with which you perceive the others? The root instrument is I am the body thought. And Bhagavan says this I am the body thought has two components. One is I, that which is unchanging, that which is self-luminous, that which does not depend on another for its existence. And the other is the body, which is inert, which has birth and death, and which has to be fed from time to time for it to be kept going. He tells that student that the instrument that you are using has this combination of two opposites. That which is mortal and that which is immortal, it has mixed up. Now, how can a mixture of mortal and immortal be real? He asks that boy. And with this unreal instrument, you are perceiving and saying, somebody is sitting on the sofa and I am sitting on the ground. Are there not two of us? You purify that instrument till it reaches the pure self, then you will see the self alone, was the instruction to that boy. That's what we had seen. We had seen that example too many times in our discussions. The example where the scientist boy comes and asks those questions of Bhagavan. So, Sat Chit Udiyad, the I does not rise, therefore does not set. This therefore does not set is put in brackets by Pandit Lakshman Sharma and Sadhvam Swamigal, which indicates that Jatasya hi Dhruvor Mrityu, Dhruvor Janma Mrityasya cha. Only that which is born, or that in that verse it is, that which is born is bound to die, that which is dead is bound to be reborn, is the verse. But we can understand from that which does not undergo the trouble of birth, how can it suffer the problem of death? So, Sat Chit Udiyad, it does not have birth, therefore it does not have death. It does not have appearance, therefore it does not disappear at all. Sat Chit Udiyad. Now that Sat Chit is the existence consciousness. So we should clearly understand that Bhagavan has now brought us, if we are worshippers of God, as we are, as Guru Vachaka Kovai puts it, that self-inquiry is the worship of consciousness by consciousness. The knowing of consciousness by consciousness is the porul, is the ulla porul, says Guru Vachaka Kovai. That self-inquiry is a worship of consciousness by consciousness. What consciousness by what consciousness? The Sat Chit by the limited consciousness. That is the worship we are doing. Sat Chit Udiyad. So these two things are clear, that Jadavudal Nan and Nan, Sat Chit Udiyad. The next phrase is interesting. It says, Udalalawa Nanondru Udikku Idayil Id. Idayil Id means in between these two entities, the I that does not rise or set, and the inert body which is subject to birth and death, but it by itself does not have the capacity to say I. In between these two, Idayil Id, Udal Alavam Nan. Udal Alavam Nan. To the extent of the body, the I rises and identifies itself as I. And as we know, the Udal we should include the Panchakoshas or the three Shariras. The Panchakoshas being the Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya and Anandamaya. The clubbing of them into three Shariras are Stula, Sukshma and Karana. Now, Udalalavam, to the extent of the body, the I rises and fills that gap in between the two. Idayil Id, Chit Jada Giranti. This is called as Chit Jada Giranti. Now, the problem has been defined. that the root of all problems is Chit Jada Granthi. We know that in Who Am I, Bhagavan starts the preamble by saying, all living creatures seek to be happy always without a trace of sorrow. So we who think we are seeking a more comfortable life, or we are seeking the better mango in the market, or whatever, Bhagavan says it is not that which you are looking for, but it is happiness. Then he goes ahead in the preamble and says, this happiness is the very nature of every living being and is experienced by them in deep sleep where there is no mind. So therefore the problem has been defined there, that the problem is that we look to happiness from the wrong area, in the area panned by the Chitjada Granthi. The Chitjada Granthi is Udalalava Nanundru Udikkum Idayilidu. In between the Sadvastu and the inert body, there rises this ahankara, this ego, as to the extent of the body. One should understand that extent could be the physical or the sthula sharira, the mind or the karana sharira. Idayilidu Chitjada Granthi, but that is not merely Chitjada Granthi. It is the essence of all the problems. What are all the problems? Bandham. Bandham is the problem of attachment. Many a spiritual teacher who teaches the path of bhakti and the path of jnana as step-by-step methods, they pay a lot of attention on attachment and detachment. So the bandham, that pasam, which keeps you bound to the limited. When we see, this is mine, this boy is my boy and he is suffering, what should I do? I don't look at the human condition of suffering, but I look at somebody who is in my ring of possessions, and when I worry about them, that is called as attachment. Whereas when I see the whole human condition, the whole area of interconnected area of bandham, then I am having a different sight. I am having a different look at the problem. A detachment comes to the individual suffering, but a clearer perception is there of the whole area of suffering. Say those who teach the Bhakti Marga and the Jnana Marga. But that attachment and detachment is a very key understanding that consciousness should have. The one who is bound, one of the primary areas that the bound one should understand is the area of bandham, urvaruham, iva bandhanat. Because to free oneself of that bandham, it is such a tricky business. Like the cucumber, when ripe, how gently, without troubling the plant and without troubling itself, without even the knowledge that it has renounced, it just frees itself of the plant. And that is how Bhagavan says, Atma Vichara brings in freedom or renunciation from bandham. Bhagavan says it is like almost somebody holding a walking stick, walking all the way from the veranda to his the rocking chair or the sleeping chair, and rests in the chair, but the hand is still holding on to the walking stick for whatever reason we don't know. Then once the sleep sets in, the hand lets go of the walking stick and it falls off. That is how the bandha nivritti happens in Atma. You don't even know that you had bandham or you have now become free of it. Neither the sense of bondage nor the sense of liberation is there in the Atma Jnani. So, this Chit Jada Giranti is bandham. This ahankara is bandham. Bandham, jivan. The feeling that I am such a minuscule entity in this whole scheme of things, and I have to achieve this. I have this load to bear. I have this family to take care of. I have this work to do. I am bound to appear in that particular form. That is Jivan, the feeling of being such a minuscule entity in the whole vast samsara. Nutpame, it is said that all happiness and sorrow of the emotional kind at least are experienced only in the Nutpame. It is more the field of the kshetram of sowing and reaping the harvest of karma, more so than the body becoming merely an incidental instrument as we get attached more and more to our identity with the Sukshma Sharira. The Sukshma Sharira occupies 90% of our time, 90-95% of our time, and causes all the problems. What is that Sukshma Sharira? From where does it arise? From Chidjadagyananti. The mind has its arise. All thoughts, however coarse, however subtle, however abstract, they all arise after the rise of the I thought. So the problem definition is that if you feel manameva karanaha, bandha moksha, yoho, if you feel that you have arrived at that problem definition, that the manas is the karanam. Why? What is at the root of the mind? In problem solving, in management, they say, after you define the present situation, try to analyze the conditions, then keep asking, why this is the problem? Is there something else that is at the root of this? Why is mind the problem? Because the ego rises. Till you don't have any more analysis to do, till you feel you have come to the last source of all problems, you do this reduction, says management, in problem solving, and Bhagavan has done that for us. All dyads and triads arise only after the rise of Ahankar. He takes up the root dyad of Jnana and Ajnana and thrashes it in 4 verses that the Jnana and Ajnana will vanish once the root Ahankara is gone. So one by one, Bhagavan has asked the question, what is at the root of this? What is at the root of fate and free will? Ahankar. What is at the root of past, present, future? Ahankar. What is at the root of time and space? Ahankar. And that is where the light is being put. Chidjadagirandi, Jivan, Bandham, Jivan, Nutpame, Ahandai. Of course, the common terminology that it is used, Aham, Tai. This is me. Angammeri Ahankarittidu Anavapadubaviye Tunganyanawal Kundu Saduveer Tumanichudarahidir. Says Bhagavan, says Satyamangalam Venkatramana in Ramanacentre Bengaluru, that what is Ahankar? Angammeri Ahankarittidu. It identifies with the I. This is me. And Bhagavan says in the Maharishi's Gospel, Murliji had brought that question yesterday, day before yesterday. He said, this question alone I am going to ask you for the many days to come, because this seems to have so much in it. And Bhagavan says that how the focus from the eyebrows, unless it is accompanied by japa, dhyana, the focus in the eyebrow will be lost very soon. Unless the mind is also focused, it is going to be lost soon. Where will it finally take us? It will finally take us to the eye, which will be taken to the heart. Why finally keep it pending for analyzing all these things? Angammeri ahangaritidum Anavapadupavi Tunganyanaval Kondu Sadu. Cut that. In that answer, Bhagavan, in Gospel, Bhagavan says, as soon as the identification of the Ahankara with the body is there, immediately it starts going through the eye. That is why they have asked, the Guru has asked, fix that to the gap between the eyebrows. Why? As soon as sensory body identification is there, all these wonderful, colorful, beautiful things that appear to us seem to attract us and take away our vision with them. That is why Bhagavan says in that answer, that is why it is said, don't look through the two eyes and get caught in the multiplicity of objects that is seen, but fix that attention to the point between the eyebrows. So, Angam Meri Ahangaritidum. Kannenu Angam Meri Ahangaritidum. Anava Padupavi. This Padupavi means the worst sinner or the root of all problems is Ahankara once again. So, Ahankara Ichamusaram. Idayilidu Chijjadagiranti Bandam Jeevan Nuppame Ahandai Ichamusaram. Samsara is this constant activities and the flux of things from one to another, to another, to another, then apparent cycle, then again start the cycle and keep going one to another. Carl Sagan says that how is the fourth dimension seen? If you take a point on earth and keep walking in one direction, after many days you will come back to the same point. Then you will realize that what you were thinking as flat is actually curved. It is not flat dimension, it is curved. So curved means, that means that you are going to go into one more cycle. So it is bound but infinite. Because you are going to go one more round, one more round, one more round, like that. Samsaram. Samsaram means this bound area of objects in a constant nature of flux or change, where you catch hold of one, it doesn't remain like that. It suddenly changes into something else. You feel you have caught hold of it. The whole essence of Maya is there in samsara. Bhagavan doesn't use the word Maya in his teachings. It's not necessary. And even when questions are asked about Maya to him, he says it is Yama, that which does not exist. So why discuss that? If that does not exist, because in Advaita, Maya is supposed to be more difficult to explain than Brahman. It is said that Brahman is easier to explain than Maya. This samsara is the Maya, and Bhagavan keeps it simple. It doesn't introduce the word Maya because anyway it's not going to be there. It does not really exist. What really exists? Only Bhagavan exists. Only the Atma Swarupa exists. Revathi and I, we were having a small chat before the group started, the meeting started, and we were finding that only Bhagavan exists is what gives credence to the statement of Tattvamasi. Now what else can be? If Bhagavan alone is there, then who else can you be? Sadhuam Swamigal says to somebody who says, now that your Bhagavan has attained Mahanirvana and is no more, what are you all going to do? And Sadhuam Swamigal is supposed to have said, Bhagavan is the only being who is there, who is eternally there. We are already dead. We are all not there. Now what conviction, what an identification of that non-present Ahankara, the annihilation of the Ahankara and the oneness with the Guru is shown by such great ones as Sadhuam Swamigal. And we were discussing that if that is the case, who else can we be? We can't be anything else. Tattvamasi is given. Once Bhagavan alone is there, you can't be anything else. Ichamusaram Manam, the whole problem creator, Manam, and what Bhagavan says as Mano Nasha. Mano Nasha is said by Bhagavan. But I have shared with the group earlier that I had an uncle who moved on, was absorbed into his Guru last year, maybe in the beginning of 2022. He was a staunch follower of Paramacharya, and he would pull my leg 2-3 times he has met after I have started Atmauchara practice. And each time he would say, Enna Nandu, you are saying Mano Nasha, Mano Nasha. Nasa enge irundhu. Manasu appadiye pongi vadiyanu illaya. It should bring with love and happiness and bliss. Purnama irukanu, he would say. And I had somehow the fair sense not to retort because he was really a great sadhaka and a great devotee of Paramacharya and a great upasaka of Gayatri Mantra. For 50 years, regular upasaka of Gayatri Mantra. Great being, totally absorbed into his Guru without a murmur as the discussions about his movement or about his moving on was mentioned. But what we find here is that the Mano Nasha is told only by giving us the Purna Vastu. When the Ahankara Nasha is done, all the koshas are filled by the Atman. The bliss, the Annamaya Kosha, the Pranamaya Kosha, the Manomaya Kosha, and the what is called as the emotional body, which is a combination of these three, and the Vijnanamaya Kosha and the Anandamaya Kosha all get permeated, filled with the Atman. When we do Atmacharam, one by one can experience this, that Bhagavan closes the manas first and he then fills the other koshas. That the emotional kosha, when it is filled, one can see this is the happiness, this is bliss. That is what Bhagavan says to Kapali Shastri. The bodily experience is one of bliss. There is a thrill when the Supreme Being, who is bliss, consumes you. When the Supreme Being consumes you, you verily become that. The whole body becomes a set of vibrations, a set of bliss. And the Anandamaya Kosha, it just permeates all the other koshas. And the Anandamaya Kosha itself is filled by the self. The Atmamayam is the source from where the fountainhead, from where the bliss is felt by the other koshas. And as the other koshas vanish, that simplicity of I am alone remains. There is not even the thrill of the body being just filled by that happiness. Even that is not there or sought. One rests in that silence of I am. The very simplicity of Shiva, having renounced even that thrill of happiness when the body is filled by that bliss from within, those things are also renounced as one identifies with the simplicity of I am. But that is to be much later from verse 31 onwards. But this is what the Manam, the Mano Nasha is to be taken up, and it is completed by Chitjada Giranti Nasham. When the Chitjada Granthi is broken, the Mano Nasha, or the filling of all the koshas with the Atmaswarupa, is natural. End. Bhagavan says, you meditate on this. You meditate on this root problem definition. Don't go anywhere. There is no other problem. Because this identity has mixed up two opposites. That which is eternal, that which is full of life, that which does not have birth and death, that self-luminous self with this inert body, and it lies between these two, whole problems start. What is the solution? Turn the ray of light which is going after the wrong areas onto this Chitjadagiranti. Irrespective of whether one problem is there, 100 problem is there, same problem is there for 14 years, you keep going towards the Purnavastu. Automatically, the one who sees the problem and attempts at the solution is transformed. Therefore, Drishtin Jnanamayam Kritva, Pashyad Brahmamayam Jagat becomes a reality. But much of that after the sadhana verses. But this is how the definition of problem is done by our Bhagavan. How beautifully he pinpoints this one thing and gives it to you. Do this, that's enough. The samsara and all the problems associated with it are attended automatically. A better light attends to the problem. Is that not enough? What more can we ask? Anybody in any problem, no dismantling of problem and analyzing it to tell the solution. Turn around. Be a better light. You will perceive the problem in different light. You will come to better solutions automatically. The only thing to be attended to is your own shift from darkness to light. Asatoma Sadgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Those that verse becomes a reality when we start putting attention on this Chit Jadagiranti, Bandham, Jeevan, Nutpamai, Ahandai, Ichamusara, Mana, Yen Enne, says Bhagwan. Let us recap the contents of the verse once again. Jadavudal, Nanennadu. The inert body does not say I. The Satchit does not rise, nor does it set, nor does it subside. But between these two, there arises as I to the extent of that body. Assuming the limits of that body, it rises as I. This itself is called Chitta, Jada Granthi, Jeevan, Nutpamai, subtle body, Ahankaram, Ichamusaram, this whole samsara, Manam, the problem of the manas, end, think, says Bhagavan. This problem definition, the sadhaka should never forget. Bhagavan has taken all the problems. The earlier verses has covered the whole area. Verses 5, 6, 7 took up the world and brought it to that consciousness which does not rise or set. From 8 to 22, if there is a Parama, if there is an Ishvara Shakti, from where does it arise? From where does the first Aham rise? What is the source of that? And how do we have God's darshan? Takes all the elements and one by one he says the Ahankar is the one holding which they arise. And then these 4 verses coming to the essence of problem definition. Jadavudal nanennadu Satchittu udiyadu. Udalava nanondru dikkum idayilidu. Chijjadagiranti bandham Jeevan Nutpamai Ahandai Ichamusaram Manam Yen Enne. Namo Ramana. We can sit in the practice of Atmocharam, put the light relentlessly, repeatedly, and as Akka would say, happily, as in Naplapatu. Again and again, put the light on this Chit Jadagiranti. That is enough, says Bhagavan. Adu Podume, says Sadhuvam Swamigal in another context, but we can safely use that here. Putting this light on that Chit Jadagiranti again and again is more than enough to resolve this apparent problem of samsara. In Bhagavan's grace, let us sit in Atmocharam till 8 o'clock when Akka will share her views on this verse. Revathi, you can set us the time. Namo Ramana. Namo Ramanaka. Namo Ramanaka.
Namo Ramana. Namo Ramana. Prostrations to Ramana. Shining as the self in all beings. The immense grace of the self manifest as Ramana. What a wonderful journey into that very self. And today we are on a verse, a very, very significant verse. Actually, it is not a simple verse, but it has been made very simple for us by Nanda Kumarji. And he has gone into the different aspects in a very, 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 such a simple manner that we can understand what each of these terms are. But if you look at Bhagavan, and in today's verse, we can see another very significant point which Nanda Kumarji keeps on reminding us about. And today also he told us that Bhagavan makes it a one-stop. It's just a one-stop. We get everything at one stop kind of thing, one place. Like the supermarket, we can get everything that we need over there. One answer, single solution. So normally there is so much of jargon, and especially if we are exposed to Vedanta to some extent, either through proper study, maybe if there is very deep study, then we will understand. But if there is a little mild exposure to Vedanta, we hear many terms. We hear this Jiva, Bandham, Samsara, we hear all these names. And the mind loves to multiply, to dwell upon all this, to wonder what is this? Oh, maybe I have not understood that part. What is that part? What is this part? So what Bhagavan has done is he has clubbed it all together. He says they're all one and the same thing. They may have different names based on the functionality. Even in the what Bhagavan calls manas, in Upadesha Saram, he clubs it all into manam. Although normally the parlance is used manas, buddhi, chitta, ahankara, based on the four aspects, the functionality of the mind. But Bhagavan simplifies it, and here he has clubbed it all together. And as Nanda Kumarji concluded again with emphatic repetition, if we pay attention to the Chit Jada Granthi alone, it is enough, because that is everything else as well. That is the Bandham, that is the Jivan, that is the Nutpami, it is the Ahankara, that great foe which is described in so many ways, and which I also wrote allegory about, adventures of Mr. Ego, the Ahankara, the ego in all its manifestation, in its varied forms. And sweetly Professor Swaminathan said, which I have shared in earlier satsangs also, he told my father, sir, where is this ego? Where is this mind? Bhagavan says there is no mind. And this Chit Jada Granthi, understanding the Chit Jada Granthi, is the clue to understanding that there is no separate entity called the mind. Because Bhagavan says it is a Granthi, it is a knot. What is a knot? A knot can be a knot within a single object also. Sometimes, this hands-free which I am wearing, if I carry it in my bag, it gets knotted. It doesn't need another second object to get tied with. It gets knotted with itself. So probably it's knotted in itself, or it is knotted with another object. But when the knot is unraveled, what happens to the knot? When the knot is unraveled, it doesn't exist at all. It is not an independent entity at all. So this Chit Jada Granthi, when Bhagavan Naiva Manasam Margar Jabat, the clue to that he is giving us over here, this is merely a knot, which is it is a functional entity at the most. At the most, it is a functional entity. The second very beautiful aspect of this Chit Jada Granthi is that which Bhagavan reveals to us in the Aksharamanamala, where he says, Nyamalir Keda Nanen Nurudiya Nadimin Uruven Arunachala. Am I worse than a dog? A dog can find his master by the scent of the master. Can I not find you by your scent? And there is that scent. That scent is in the Chit Jada Granthi. That's why when Nandakumarji dwells on the mind, he calls it the mind. Because it is the clue, it is the link between the Jada and the Chit. Between what appears to be Jada, if there is an existence, there is a feeling of something Jada, and the Chetana, which is unborn, that link is provided by this Chit Jada Granthi. So Bhagavan is actually making it, he's converted it for us from a villain into a friend. If we look at it as a villain, it has taken us away from the Chit. It is reflecting the consciousness onto the body. It is ruling over the body. He will tell us, of course, that the Ahankara Pay, he will call it also. But here, in this verse, he is in a sense converting it into a friend because it has the connection with consciousness. So this verse is also a clue for us to the practice of whence am I? Because the link, the granthi, the source, the rising, the ego rising from the source and getting connected to the jada. Thereby, Bhagavan is pointing out to us that you can travel the way back. You can go back the way you came. That famous statement of Bhagavan using the Chit-Jada Granthi. In this verse, Bhagavan is not delineating the method actually. Bhagavan is only defining the facts for us. What is this? What is this? But this definition, the fact of definition, he has solved the problem for us. The moment we know this is non-existent, it is only a Chitta Jada Granthi, it has no locus standi of its own. And also, there is a possibility that I can use it because it is the bridge. It is the bridge back to consciousness. This is the beautiful aspect of this verse which Bhagavan has given us. Apart from the fact that he has simplified the whole world of bondage by giving us all the terms, all the possible terms as synonyms. And he has not used some terms. Nanda Kumarji told us he has not used some terms because it's not necessary to use some terms. So what we can understand that even if there are other terms by which the ego is referred to, they all tantamount only to this. That is the great advantage which Bhagavan is giving us. We don't have to get lost in the Shabdajalam Maharanyam, the great forest of words and concepts. There are so many. And he also pointed out to us that even the bliss of the self has to be transcended. Recently, I was going through some of Ganapati Muni's letters to Bhagavan from Sirsi, and in one of the letters he talks about the bliss, he talks about the detachment, the absolute detachment, but he says even then, since there is awareness of the body, I understand that this is only the Vijnanamaya Kosha or the Anandamaya Kosha. It has to be transcended by your grace. And what is not possible for your grace, O Bhagavan? That is what he writes. He says, I am in bliss the whole day. It is very beautiful. But this has to be transcended. That is the point also which was highlighted for us today. some of us may wonder, when we hear Nanda Kumarji talking about the bliss, talking about the very naturalness of the self, we may wonder, is it possible even for us? People have asked Bhagavan, is it possible for us also, Bhagavan? But it can be taken as two things. One, it is clarification for one who is already there, who is already at that part of the Granthi. Nanda Kumarji often also shares that there are millions of Granthis which we have. The Granthis are knots, they are obstacles, they are little places which we get tied up to. Little bondages. All the knots are bandha only. All because a knot is tying up. No, it's a bondage. So they're all bandhas, and many sadhanas can clear several granthis for us. That's why in Ramana Gita, Bhagavan says, Adbhuta Siddhaya Sadhya Upayantara Taschaya Ta Prapnopi Bhavati Ante Vichare Naiva Nirvritha. Why wait for the end? Nanda Kumarji asked us today. Why wait? Because Bhavati Ante Vichare Naiva Nirvritaha. At the end, you have to come to Vichara. So we feel very happy sometimes. We get a solution, we get an answer. When we are in satsang, we get an answer. We feel very happy. Not to deny those joys, these little moments of grace, not to deny their validity at all. And sometimes in our lives, when we experience either some intellectual difficulty or a difficulty in sadhana or a difficulty in the external life, and when that is sorted out by Bhagavan and we feel so grateful to him for that grace, and that granthi gets dissolved, it is very beautiful. But we should not stop there. That is what this today's satsang again Nanda Kumarji has reiterated for us, that we should not stop at any of those reliefs. Any relief that comes to us, including the highest relief of being in bliss. And this again reminds me of a very favorite episode in the story of Hemachuda and Hemalekha in Tripura Rahasyam, quoted by Bhagavan, where the king Hemachuda has as his guru his wife, the queen Hemalekha, and she slowly weans him from a position of sense pleasures. And as was told today, that at that juncture, she advocates bhakti, she advocates the prayers to Mahadeva. Otherwise, there's a lot of conflict which is facing. Then he crosses over that and he comes to a point of Nirvikalpa Samadhi. And she comes and wakes him up from the Nirvikalpa Samadhi, and he gets very upset and he says, why did you do this? Why did you disturb my bliss? And she answers, if your bliss can be disturbed, if your bliss can be broken by the mere movement of your eyelids, by your waking up from the Samadhi, of what use is such a bliss? Should it not be natural? Is the question which she poses to him, and then she guides him further to the Sahaja Nishtha, which is what is emphasized by Bhagavan. Always the Sahaja Nishtha in which he was there. We recently played Bhagavan's continued by his grace, playing the story of his life, and we were in a scene in early years in Gurumurtam, where one Achyutadasa, along with his disciples, comes to see Bhagavan. He was little known in those days, and it is recorded that Achyutadasa says, yes, it is possible to understand the glory of self-knowledge. It is possible to tread the path. It is possible even to attain samadhi. But how can we find one who is in that state unwaveringly all the time, 24/7, day in and day out? That's the glory of the Sahajanishta, cannot be described in words. He says in ecstasy, that great sage declares. So that is the bounty which the Sadguru is offering to us in every one of his words, and how blessed we are that we have been allowed to meditate on this and have again the opportunity to understand the significance of turning our attention back with single focus to the Chit Jada Granthi and allow it to take us back to the source without asking of it anything else whatsoever. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya.